Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another replay commentary. It's been a bit since my last one, I do apologize, I'm a little busy. But I've got a pretty interesting game today, I think. I think this game is very well suited for beginner review to help with some, getting a little bit better overall, unit placement, unit builds, things like that. So yeah, to start off, we'll talk about the CO. So my opponent is playing Adder, and I am playing Jess. Adder has no day-to-day abilities, so he's just 100. His normal power, Side Slip gives him 1 extra movement for 2 stars, and then his superpower Sidewinder gives him 2 movement for 5. So usually you want to use Adder's little power, as it is just overall more effective with giving a boost. When it comes to Jess, pretty standard pick on my end. Jess is my favorite CO. She gets plus 10% firepower on all vehicles, but every other unit, including foot soldiers, gets minus 10% firepower. Not a super great trade-off. Even if just her infantry were fine and everything else was the same, she'd be a much better CO. But her powers are pretty decent, getting up to a 40% overall firepower boost on her vehicles, plus 1 movement, and then resupplying all units. And then her overdrive sets that up to 60% firepower, 2 movement, and still refuels and resupplies all other units. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get into the match. As you can see, this match is a little bit different than my other ones I've done. This is not Fog of War. I've recently tried to get a bit more into the standard Global League. Anyways, so the first couple turns is just, typical infantry stuff. Nothing super crazy. You just kind of get to see what properties people go for. As you can see, I'm just choosing not to cap this one with my first infantry and instead start moving on towards the base. And then Keyhaps over there. He starts to capture over here by the river. Normal stuff. Building infantry. It's going to be just still pretty similar stuff for just a little bit. But it's going to start to diverge pretty soon. So he moves over to cap property there. He finishes up a cap over there, and then, as you can see, he doesn't finish the cap here. He instead moves out to try and, capture that property. Moves another infantry on to try and capture that, and then he moves this infantry away from this base. So I'm assuming he doesn't realize that this is a base. I mean, admittedly, it kind of looks a little similar to the cities, a little bit, but he didn't go for the base, and this is going to be one of the big hamperings on him on the match, as he's not producing enough units to match mine. I'll be producing basically an extra unit than him a turn with this base, even though it's kind of further in the back. Goes for the double infantry and continues out. So I finish up a couple caps. I do end up capping the base now, which means I can start producing 3 units a turn. And I go ahead and I build out my first tank. This is going to now require a response on his end for him to build out a tank too. As you can see, he stops the capture over here and then moves up. I don't know if maybe he thinks that, capturing it and then capping it with another infantry would capture the city, but whenever you move your infantry off of a city, you do not keep the capture points that you've accumulated. And now that, of course, prompts him to build a tank as well. So now we're overall looking pretty even. He's got slight value lead because he has an extra infantry. Makes sense. I start moving up. In the income now making 10,000 a turn, which is great. I build out another infantry, and then I go for an artillery on the base over here, and then build another infantry, so that way I'm making use of all of my bases. And I like artillery over here because there's mountain ranges, meaning that and this is a pretty nice point, like if you can get here with your artillery, you can blast a pretty decent chunk and not have to worry about anything aside from B-copters. So I really like the position there, and that's what I want to get my artillery into. He finally finishes that cap over there, so he could have been making, pretty good amount more, but it's whatever. He initiates a bunch of captures this turn, looking to try and go up to 14,000, but neglecting the airport and the property back here, which is not going to be great for him. He goes tank and infantry. So now he's got 2 tanks to my 1, but I do have an artillery for backing up. And, I go ahead and just start taking a shot here, no reason to try and let him get that city. And then I build out a second tank, and then I just go double infantry, and I start moving towards this property here, and moving towards the middle as well. And that way, if he wants to try and interrupt the cap, he's only able to hit it with 1 infantry, and I'm able to strike with a healthy one next turn, and he can't weaken that one further. So I'm really liking the position overall. He has brought up the income disparity. He starts capping the airport now. He moves the tank over. Makes some pretty good sense. He does interrupt the cap, which is good. You do want to try and interrupt caps. This is a pretty decent trade from overall as well. He builds an artillery and infantry. And yeah, he's just missing these properties right here. Like, this is going to put such a hurt on his income once I start, getting some of these properties here. Like, I haven't quite gotten these yet. I've started moving a bit more down, a bit towards the center, whereas he's already focused on the side. So if he had been doing that along with capturing these properties with this infantry, he'd be way ahead of me. Anyways, I go ahead and finish a capture there, and I just block off the tank with my infantry so I can try and start getting a another hit off. I kill the the infantry on the city, move my artillery down. I cap again on the property, and I just take some first strikes on his infantry, so that way I can, just kind of get rid of his presence in the middle and start moving towards him. I've got just like a line of infantry, and I build an second artillery over here. Like I said, these mountain ranges are great for artillery, because you have to build a B-copter to really respond to him properly. And then I go infantry. Move on to the city so he can't just start capturing mine. Basically make him be a bit of an aggressor. He captures the airport now, good. He starts moving towards the other properties. He takes cover, that's always good. He does interrupt the capture another whole, infantry basically. So not bad, denying me some income, but it pretty much put all of his infantry in potential killing range here for me. He moves his tank, and he has the tank fire on my infantry. And then he moves his other tank right behind it. So he's effectively just choked him off. And they're really, they have to move all the way around here to do anything, or they have to backtrack around, so it's not super useful positioning for him. Goes for tank and infantry and passes over. And I just go ahead and move the infantry over and take my shot. It's a pretty nice hit, getting 4 and 2. We're going down to 4 and 8, not too bad. Get the artillery in position to shoot on them. If only this was Fog of War and this was hidden, oh, that'd be so good. But I go ahead and I take a good shot at his infantry and really start pushing him away from over here. I go ahead and build a battlecopter and an infantry over here on this base, leaving with about 10k left, meaning that he's going to have to respond with an anti-air or battlecopter of his own. I basically just cover my cities with my infantry, move out, and then over here on the side, I build a recon. Because he's only got an infantry and he's got an artillery, so I'm thinking a recon might be okay. I'm not thinking it's the best play in the world, but I'd rather have it than not. So then he does something that I think was terrible. He strikes his tank with his weakened tank onto mine, rather than maybe pulling it back to get healing, and then he shoots with it, or then he combines with his healthy tank. Bad play overall. What I would have done in this case is I probably would have taken this tank, moved it over here. I would have probably moved this tank over towards the center, like a little bit, or maybe pulled it back a bit. You can block with the infantry here to prevent, or try and prevent it just getting murdered. But instead, he pretty much stacks the tank, joins it together to lose another unit, because it's just going to get hit by the artillery, and then I'm going to probably get another first strike, or at least just block him off with another infantry, making it effectively useless. He starts capturing on some properties over here on my end, taking some more first strikes, and he pulls back from the cities over here. He uses his artillery to kill my infantry, and brings his tank up to block it. Pretty good play. He builds another tank, and now it's a little dangerous for me. I only have 1 tank and an artillery to his 2 tanks and an artillery. He's finally starting to move the stuff over here, and he builds out a medium tank now, bringing out the big guns. And you'd think this would normally force me to have to tech up, but you're going to see pretty soon that it's not really going to happen. In fact, if we take a moment to just look at our value differences right now, he has 51,000, whereas I only have, just under 49. But I still haven't built any units yet. So once I build units, if I've used up all my money, I'd effectively have a 20,000 value lead over him with equal income. And now it's no longer equal income due to me capturing that city. So yeah, I take out the tank, so that was literally just a waste. Bring the battlecopter over here to start killing his infantry. He's not going to capture my city. He's not while I'm, right here. So there's all of that presence gone. I start capturing back here. Move on to the city to get some healing. And just start trying to get a bit better positioning. Now, admittedly, here's where I do something dumb. I attack with my tank, and I move my artillery up. Now, my goal behind this was to put my artillery in range to the point where he would either have to shoot on my tank, and then I shoot back with my artillery, or he shoots my artillery and then maybe first strikes the tank, but then I'll be able to shoot him back, or I'll be able to hit the tank, and I've got the battlecopter. So I thought this was going to be a good play, but I heavily misjudged Adder's ability to move. I did not factor in that he could reach right here, which is a bad place for him to be able to hit me from, and he also has his power, which means that even if he couldn't reach there beforehand, his power would let him. So I was a very big misplay on my end. I move the recon down, build out another tank, and infantry, and I already have another battlecopter on the way. So as we can now see, the value difference is starting to get pretty significant, I'd say, between the two of us, especially also unit number difference as well. And as you can see, starting now to capture these properties here. So I don't have a huge lead, so he could have had a potential income lead over me. Anyway, so he fires the artillery first, he kills that tank, then he pops his power, and then he moves in and he gets that first strike there, which is pretty good play overall by him. That was a great play. I think he probably should have popped his power first, so that way he could have moved his medium tank sooner, gotten this infantry a little bit further, and also had extra firepower on these attacks as well, but it's okay. He made a very great play. He shoots on my healthy infantry, builds another one, builds another tank. Wait, what did he do? What? Okay, oh, he captured there, and then he built a battlecopter, moved over, and then it turned. So now, I had a pretty good lead over him value-wise. He brought it back down, he did very good, but I was not about to quit now, especially since, I still have an income lead over him for now. I take a strike on that healthy infantry, shoot down over here, and I will actually follow it up with a second strike too, which is great. I move the battlecopter, hit the healthy tank, and I decide to move my artillery back, try to wall it off with the infantry, start capturing my middle property, which I should have already had, but it's okay. And as you can see, he still hasn't built an anti-air. He's built a battlecopter, but 2 battlecopters are going to outmaneuver 1. Even if they have 10% less firepower, I still have 2 of them. I take a risky strike there, and I just start repositioning, kind of help deal with that medium tank, basically. I move the battlecopter over for it to be able to strike there. Continue moving towards the other properties, bring the tank down, of course, and I go ahead and build out double anti-air, as I'm not sure where he's going to move it, but the mountains pretty restrict movement on my anti-air, and I feel 2 is probably warranted in the situation, and I do have enough to build an infantry, so I'm not base skipping, and I've brought the, this already back again to where I'm, ahead of him over on value, moves the battlecopter straight up, and kills that infantry. Not a terrible play. He kills my 3-point infantry. He moves over and starts capturing a property, which I think is odd that he decided to try and do that. He tries to block off the medium tank with his infantry. Decent play, but he just doesn't have an anti-air to back it up. And as you can see, he's now making more than me. And he's also able to get rid of my infantry wall, so he hits my artillery pretty hard. He finally builds that anti-air. He also goes double anti-air. So it's still pretty even, although I haven't built any units yet, and a lot of his value is right here. Actually, is where a lot of his value is. But you're going to see now, admittedly, I got on him a bit for not popping his power right away. I also did not pop my power when I should have. I should have popped it sooner. But I capture here, and then I take a strike with that recon. I attack with the battlecopter, and then I start initiating 2 captures. Sorry, 3 captures. Move over the tank. Move over that infantry. I move my anti-air, and then I move my, then I use my power. So I should have, used my power before I moved the tank and the anti-air, and I probably could have used it actually before doing the battlecopter strike to try and help ensure I kill. But that's besides the point. With this, I'm able to move my anti-air straight over here and kill that battlecopter, because if we actually take a look back real quick, so the anti-air's movement can now reach this tile right here. It could not reach that tile without it, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is the anti-air's movement. But Jess gives that 1 more to bam, kill the battlecopter. So great play, I think, over there, getting that battlecopter out of the way. That also lets me fire with the artillery and get a kill with one against her infantry. I can stop the capturing infantry too, and I can park my tank to go ahead and get some extra healing. I can take a strike on his battlecopter, and I can do it very safely as he can't cross the river, and even with a power right here, that does not kill my battlecopter. And that also lets me start moving towards the middle to some of his other properties. I go ahead and fire on the artillery, trying to get the extra hit off, bringing it down to 2. I go ahead and build a mech for easier river crossing, a tank, and then another tank. So as you can see, it's a pretty big difference in value right now, and you'll see it's still pretty big after the building of units. He go ahead and kills that infantry, but he moves his medium tank right in turn, the range of my artillery. He doesn't block it off, and he starts bringing up the anti-air. He finally starts capturing that base after so long. He moves the artillery back and stops me from capping one of the properties entirely, which is pretty good. Then he builds a tank, another tank, and then he ends up resigning. And I'm not sure if this was a horribly losing field, so let's just take a quick look and survey it. So I would have captured this property, bringing it up to 19,000. Next turn he would have been able to capture this one also at 19,000. I would not be able to have this property yet, although I am able to first strike a tank over here, and I can do it from a property. I'm able to bring down my battlecopter as well to hit the artillery or the anti-air. I have another anti-air coming up as well. And his medium tank is a sitting duck for my artillery and my battlecopter, and even though if I want to attack any unit, I have to risk my battlecopter getting shot down by his anti-air, it's already taken a good chunk out of the medium tank there, and if I'm halting the anti-air from advancing further and disrupting, any of my caps that I'm trying to do here, that would also be really good too. So, I'm not sure if this was totally a losing position for him, but I feel I definitely had a pretty decent advantage overall. I definitely made some mistakes for sure. I think probably overall some of the the biggest errors that were done was not going for this base early and not waiting until the turn you resign to get it, because now you're just not producing enough units. There was no proper response for either of my battlecopters until way too late, and also some of the capture movements that were done. You started capturing here, you moved over, started capturing, moved over, so you weren't getting that property sooner. My capturing was not on point either, but Mr. Quiz, you could have easily had a income lead over me for a good chunk of the game, and that could have helped turn things if you just had this property sooner. We're producing more units. Well played though overall. It's not like as if you were terrible or anything. I definitely don't want to be rude, but I think there definitely were some room for improvement on your end, but I also agree I had room for improvement as well. I do want to say thank you guys for watching the video. I very much hope that you guys enjoyed it. Y'all please just take care.